Blink Publishing presents Breakpoint. Written and read by me, Ollie Ollerton. This book is dedicated to my mum, whose unconditional love and care held firm even when all around her was falling apart. To my amazing girlfriend Laura, who will never quite understand just how much she helps me grow. And to my son Luke, who I missed every day and never forgot. Names, locations, procedures and specific events have been redacted to protect the security of those involved and the practices of the British Special Forces. Everything else has been described as it happened. Prologue. There was not much to see on the road from Amman to Baghdad. There was sun, of course, searing a mighty hole through acre after acre of blue. Camels and goats foraging for unseen greenery. The odd bomb crater and chewed-up vehicle, including a bright red Ferrari, which would have made more sense on the moon. A mile after mile of highway, hugged by a watery haze and cutting a swathe through the flat and featureless desert landscape. We'd been on the road for what seemed like forever when it was my turn to take the wheel. I'd travelled 14 hours the day before and was driving on autopilot. My mind and body merged with the vehicle and tarmac beneath it. Before I'd set off that day, I'd been convinced, hopeful even, that something might break the monotony. But as the mileometer ticked over, all I could think about was getting home and collapsing in my pit. It was as I was telling my colleague Dave of my evening's plans that something caught my eye in the wing mirror. I looked over my shoulder to see headlights flashing behind us. It was about 5:45 and there were no other vehicles on the road. My immediate thought was that it was the American military. No problem. But as the vehicle gathered speed and drew closer, I realised that it couldn't be the Americans because the vehicle, a black Mercedes, had blacked out windows. I then thought it might be a security company. But if it was, what did they want me to do? Pull over? There was no way I was taking that risk. I informed Dave that we had a possible target to the rear. Dave informed me that there were in fact two pursuing vehicles. As I was considering the possibilities, the windows came down on the front vehicle and 4 AK-47s emerged. Oh, fuck. I glanced to my left and saw a sign that said Fallujah, and it dawned on me that something big that I thought might happen, that I desperately wanted to happen, was happening. In the very place I'd imagined. Talk about tempting fate, I thought to myself, you fucking idiot. My body began to roast from the toes upwards, my senses heightened, which happens when you're suddenly pitched into blackness. My mind contracted into a tangled ball of confusion so that I couldn't think. I'd gone into shock. It was as if I'd died for a second and was looking down on myself. I had no idea what I was going to do. I felt very alone, vulnerable and pathetic. An image flashed through my mind, me on the side of the road, minus my head. But it wasn't just me who was in danger of being killed. I was responsible for Dave behind me and 12 civilians piled into vans in front, employees of ABC News. The pressure and anxiety were about to spill over when gunfire rang out. AK-47 fire is very distinct and very intimidating. When there are 4 going off at the same time, it's like some hellish orchestra. Extremely noisy and extremely nasty. In fact, and rather appropriately, it sounds like the cracking that signals the start of an avalanche. But when a couple of rounds came over the top of our vehicle, which might have buried some people, it was as if a hypnotist had clicked his fingers, bringing me out of my trance. In the military, as soon as it gets noisy, it gets real. It was at that moment that my training kicked in. I knew that unless I tamed the stress, we were all going to die. So I gained control of my breathing, stripped away all of the shit that didn't matter and began to think rationally. The people in the front vehicles didn't matter. It was my actions that mattered, because it was my actions that would affect them. I had to put aside all the different pressures and anxieties and deal with the threat. That was the only way to resolve the issue at hand. It had all happened so fast, but once I had my breathing under control, everything slowed down. In effect, I was able to control the speed of events. Some might think a second is simply a second, end of story. But a second is only as short or long as the person who experiences it. You can decide how long a second is, but only if you're at ease with the situation you're in.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?